I was so focused on MIT that I ended up going to Boston, and I hate Boston.
That's my hometown. Watch what you say. I get it. But.
I hate all their sports teams too. Let's go.
All right, this interview is done. Time, that's a wrap.
I'm just like a glutton for pain. Like I used to play beer pong while doing problem sets. Like I'd have my math problem set on the table and I'd be working on it between shots. So we ordered 10,000 cans of Diet Coke. He missed out on like a little private chain smokers concert.
Hey guys, welcome back to Basement Dwellers, the show where we talk to CEOs about their lives back when they were basements. I'm joined here today with Jake Gibson, angel investor in Silicon Valley. Nice for you to join us, Jake.
Yeah, great to be here.
Off the bat, have you ever had a basement dwelling phase of your life?
Never lived in a basement. Well, actually, that's not true. I lived in a fraternity house when I was in college. I definitely lived in a basement for a few years then.
You lived in a frat basement?
Yeah, I lived in a frat basement. Lived in a lofted bed in the basement of a fraternity house. It was not warm.
A few things there. What is MIT frat like?
MIT is interesting because, at least when I was in school, 50+% of the male population was in the Greek system. Okay. We had more than 40 fraternities.
Oh, wow.
I think there were only like 3 or 5 sororities, but there were 40 fraternities. And so basically the entire social life of MIT and most of the social life of the greater Boston area revolved around the MIT frat parties.
Okay.
And just MIT frats in general. Like we'd have people stop by to do their homework and stuff like that all the time. It's just kind of like a constant.
You guys were like the social school, kind
of? Well, the frat system as a whole. We were not the most social fraternity.
Yeah.
One of the more social fraternities was actually next door. We always joked that the women would stop by our house to do their homework, and then when they were done, they'd go next door to party.
It's not the good end of the stick for you guys. But so, like, what's it like when all these founder types are in college? Like, are your parties like constantly like optimizing like drink ratios? Like, I just want to know what's it like when genius nerds party?
I think the closest thing to that is like I used to play beer pong while doing problem sets. Like I'd have my math problem set on the table and I'd be working on it between shots.
That's like the social network when they're hacking between taking shots.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Definitely did that.
After that, is it kind of smooth sailing? Did you hit any other parts where you're kind of like, what's going on? Where am I?
So I worked on Wall Street for about 6 years after college, and then left Wall Street after the financial crisis, and that's when I started working with my buddy Tim on what would eventually become Nerdwallet. You know, when we were first starting the company, we never raised any money or anything, so it was just the two of us for a good 2 years or so, no income, nothing, just trying to get that thing going. So. I mean, thankfully, we both had the benefit of having worked for a while before that. So,
you know, money saved up.
Yeah. So we weren't giving ourselves scurvy eating ramen every day or anything like that.
Did you have any like frugal things you're particularly not proud of, or was it pretty still civilized?
Ramen changas. Did he tell you about the ramen changas?
No. What are ramen changas?
He would make ramen and he'd drop a frozen chimichanga into it and cook the chimichanga in the ramen broth.
Sounds kind of good, actually.
Yeah. He was kind of gross. I was married. I didn't eat like that.
Did you ever have like a restaurant job or just kind of like a shitty low-wage job?
From basically the day I turned 16, I went out and got a job at McDonald's. That didn't last very long. But then I worked at Wendy's for a little bit longer.
Wendy's is better than McDonald's?
It was.
Southern charm.
It was slightly better.
Yeah.
I think the main reason I thought it was better is because Wendy's at least gave us one free meal for every shift.
McDonald's give you a free
McDonald's
meal?
gave us nothing.
You can't even just steal fries?
We would just steal the food. Worked at Wendy's for a little while, and then I went to work at a restaurant for more than a year. And there I started as a busboy, went on to become a food runner, and then an expediter, and eventually a waiter. Okay. And I hated waiting tables so bad that I ended up quitting.
You hated waiting tables more than working at Wendy's?
Yeah, because customers at fast food restaurants, you churn them, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no customer service really. Exactly.
Yeah.
Customers at sit-down restaurants are assholes.
So as someone that's worked their way up through McDonald's, Wendy's, restaurants, and then Wall Street, you know, angel investor, you've kind of done the whole gamut. What is the thing that you miss the least? Like, what is the thing that you're just so happy you don't have to deal with anymore? And what's something that you kind of do miss?
The thing I miss the most is working with a team.
Okay.
So that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. As an angel investor for the past few years, you know, I did it as a lifestyle choice. I wanted to be able to spend time at home with the kids, have a flexible schedule, but then also like still get to be productive in the ecosystem and meet a lot of people, learn a lot of cool stuff, but I'm kind of on my own terms. The thing that I don't miss is having so many people relying on you. So one of the funny things about being a founder or like running a company is, you know, people will tell you, oh, you're the boss, you can do whatever you want to do, but what I tell founders is as soon as you've raised your first dollar of capital and as soon as you've hired your first employee, it's not your company anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're not the boss anymore. You now have a bunch of bosses. You have a bunch of people that are looking to you to set an example. They're looking at you for to set motivation, to communicate everything clearly to them, to hold them accountable. There's all these different things they need from you, and then like your email inbox essentially just becomes like a constant
to-do
list of other people's. I think Drew Houston said this on a podcast recently. It's basically other people's problems. Like your to-do list just becomes like solving other people's problems.
One story we've talked about, I want to hear the details, is I heard you were, or maybe you weren't there, but there was an after party with Drew Houston of Dropbox, the Chainsmokers, and I believe Mark Zuckerberg, or no? Who was the last person?
No, no. It was the main story is between the Chainsmokers and Drew.
Okay.
So apparently there was an after party after a Chainsmokers concert, and so they were supposed to come perform. But this is the end of the night. Drew had just come from a Chainsmokers concert, and he decided he wanted to watch TV. And so like the Chainsmokers were up there kind of like tuning their guitars or whatever, and just the projector screen starts coming down.
Like over the Chainsmokers?
Yeah, or I don't know if it's behind them or in front of them, but like basically kind of like a get the fuck off my stage kind of thing. And so one of my buddies walks over to Drew and is like, Drew, like, you know, the Chainsmokers are here.
Chainsmokers are here.
They're getting ready to perform. Like, do you want to watch them or do you want to watch TV? And Drew's like, I kind of want to watch TV. I don't know. I mean, I guess he probably regrets it to this day.
Yeah.
But he missed out on like a little private Chainsmokers concert.
Is there a lot of that celebrity founder mingling? Like, is that a very rare occurrence, or that Chainsmokers come over? Is that common?
You know, a lot of these stories tend to revolve around Drew, just because I know that he, I mean, obviously, given his position, he's pretty well connected within Silicon Valley, but he also loves music. So
yeah.
I think like Bono invested in Dropbox, and one of the highlights of his life was meeting Eddie Vedder, and
yeah.
So he tends to have a lot more stories that involve, especially musicians.
Okay. Have your investments put you in touch with any celebrities?
No, you know, I've co-invested with a bunch of celebrities, but those jerks never reach out to me. So.
Oh, really? Like who?
Like Kevin Durant.
You're co-invested with Kevin Durant?
Yeah, one of my companies I co-invested with Kevin Durant. I think like maybe I'm gonna mess this up. There's like a news article about their fundraise that mentions Kevin Durant and I think Jay-Z's fund and a couple others.
Was it the best company of all time that beat out Kevin Durant's old company, so he decided to reinvest with them?
No.
Okay, because that seems his style in the NBA. So.
No, not
reach
yet.
out, Kevin Durant. Reach out
Not
to
yet.
Jake. Do you know if someone like a Kevin Durant, do they personally make the decisions to invest, or does they have like a team like investing on behalf of Kevin Durant? Like how involved is celebrity?
I think it depends on the celebrity. It's very different. But I know that like like Ashton Kutcher, Joe Montana, they're both very involved in their own investing. Mm-hmm. I have heard that Kevin Durant is very involved in his own investing. But I know there's a bunch of other people that just kind of start funds under their brand, but aren't particularly involved in the decision making.
Is there a company that you've heard of or you invested in that like you're like, wow, this is the future, that would like blow people's minds?
Magiclip, if it works and if it's real, I think is the one company that I'm like.
Okay, can you give like a summary for the viewers?
So Magiclip is an AR company, so not a VR company. Okay. So they're creating basically goggles that will allow you to see images kind of projected onto the world around you, and you can interact with them and stuff. So you can think about, it's Minority Report, essentially. Right. Like, take the computer screen out of the equation. You should just be able to like manipulate everything kind of in space in front of your face and like move files around and like all this other stuff. Or play games that way. Like you could do Pokemon Go, except like in real life, there could just be Pokemon sitting all over
everywhere,
and you don't need you're not looking out of your phone camera. It's just in front of your face wherever you look.
I think the one that I saw that really impressed me the most was 3D printing, where they can actually recycle the material that they 3D printed on. So you kind of like melt it back down and then 3D print it. So it's like the application was actually space. You need to create like a wrench. You don't need the wrench anymore. Melt it down. Now I need like a screwdriver. I mean, that's very rudimentary, but along those lines. I was like, that's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, and then like satellite servicing. You can imagine at some point we'll have like little manufacturing robots flying around in orbit, taking decommissioned satellites, melting them down, and building new satellites or building new rockets or whatever.
So we got time for like a few last questions. If I were to kind of summarize, work really hard. That's kind of one of the ways you got there.
It's an interesting question because my friends give me shit that I'm just like a glutton for pain. It's like
You like it? You're a masochist?
Yeah, it's like whenever something really stressful is in my life, I tend to just pile them on. So, like when I was at MIT, I double majored and I was working 2 part-time jobs, and I started working on Wall Street a week after I graduated. So
Yeah, you don't like fun, it sounds like.
yeah, I know.
You don't
So
like peace.
I actually kind of started helping Tim out on the side before I had formally left JP Morgan.
Right. Was this like? Did you enjoy fun as a childhood? Like when did this like happen
Just
in your
greedy.
life? Yeah, you're just born and immediately like, let's get to work.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like don't really talk about that openly, but also is something that I'm kind of proud of is that, or kind of proud in retrospect. So my father's never really been part of my life.
Yeah.
He and my mom got divorced when I was 2. He was never a particularly good influence after that, never paid child support or anything like that, and was just kind of a disaster of a human being.
Yeah.
Fancied himself as like an entrepreneur, but he was really just a petty con artist.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a shitty story, but like there are 2 things he did for me when I was a child that, like, in retrospect, were just a total accident on his part, but actually ended up having a meaningful impact on my life. He told me when I was 5 years old. First of all this kind of happened when I was about 5 years old. He gave me a computer, sat me down in front of a computer, made me learn DOS. This was back when you'd have to boot a computer off of a 5 1/4 inch floppy because they didn't have hard drives yet.
Yeah.
And I'd use them to play video games. I had my word processors and stuff. I'd write stories when I was a kid and all this stuff. And that's how I eventually kind of got into just tech in general, and then coding and so on and so forth, kind of set me up for the rest of it. He also told me around that same time that I was going to graduate from MIT. Once I was in high school and it was time for me to start thinking about colleges, like MIT was number 1.
Yeah.
I viewed kind of Harvard, Caltech, and Georgia Tech as my backups, because everybody wants to know, like, well, why did you leave Nerdwallet? And I was like, well, I want to spend more time with my kids. And like, you can't really fully appreciate that until you know that just I never really had a father figure, and so at least not a meaningful one. And so being home and present with the kids was always very important to me.
Yeah, I mean that's good. I think it's particularly good seeing when you kind of filled the gap and now you are a present father for your twin.
So that was the first time I finally took time off, by the way. All that
From-
masochism.
Yeah,
I
from
left
high school.
Nerdwallet and I didn't work for like 9 months after that. But naturally, in that time period, I had 2 infants at home and I trained for an ultramarathon. So
That's, I think, a well-deserved break. I've taken longer breaks for less accomplishments. So if you're in a frat basement and you want to be a successful angel investor, just double major, have 2 jobs, let a bunch of fires burn.
get really fucking lucky.
Yep. Get lucky, train for a marathon, have twins. That's all it takes. All right, Jake, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, man. This is
All right.
fun.
That was great.